All right. So we are back once again with another episode. Henry, I feel like we have been doing this every couple days because in the words of you, content.
Man, saying we gotta be useful with this little downtime,
No lies told. So be sure to follow us on all social media at WRGO Pod POD. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, and YouTube, since we are now able to run full video of the episodes now that we do. We also have a special guest. We've been doing interviews with people who are in politics and who are in entertainment and culture. So I will let our special guest introduce themselves this time.
How y'all doing? My name is Davonta Herring. I went to Howard University, class of 2015. I was a speech and applied communications major with an English minor. Not necessarily in politics, but, I keep up with what's around me and what's going on, in my community as much as possible. So, glad to be here. Glad y'all invited me on here. Let's talk.
Nah, of course.
Definitely appreciate you for coming on. I had reached out because I seen you tweet about, you went and voted the other day, and especially with the Supreme Court making these rulings and how that's going to affect us, down, especially with this pandemic going on. I definitely want to hear about your experience and your thoughts about that process.
For sure. I definitely, once I got home, I'm like, man, I got to say something about it. Just even if it's the smallest thing, make light of it. But it was interesting,
So for context, you voted in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which was the only state in April to vote in the primary. All the other states that had their primaries either pushed it back into either May or June temporarily or went to all mail ballot. So you actually showed up at the polls and voted, correct? So can you just talk about your experience, because you're the only person to vote in the nation. So kind of give us the what was it like?
Ironically enough, I think all of us right now, we're living each day, but we're kind of just going through the motions. And so for me, it kind of slipped my mind. Honestly, the whole fact that we were voting on Tuesday slipped my mind because, for one, I remember it was supposed to get pushed back. And so, I'm not thinking of it, but the reason why I actually remembered is because my grandmother, she woke up, they get up a little earlier than we do when we don't have anything to do. So my granny got up early, and basically she went to the place where she normally votes, and it was closed. And so she called my mom because she didn't know what she was supposed to do. She didn't know that that place was closed at all. So then it reminded me that, okay, wait a minute, yeah, we are voting today, which kind of upset me again because I'm like, wait a minute. They did vote to actually make us, have to come out here and vote. And then, so I was kind of busy throughout the day, and I went later on. So it was probably around 7-ish, 6:45, 7-ish. And, man, crazy line. And the crazy part about it was when I was pulling up to the school. Now, mind you, this is the part that I didn't let you guys know. So I think in Milwaukee, we normally have 180 polling locations. If 180, if I'm not mistaken.
You're right.
And it was only 5. And so
in the whole Milwaukee,
in the whole city of
Milwaukee.
Yeah. And so you can only imagine, if we usually have 180, how many people come out and vote with it being that many, polling locations, but it only being 5. I'm turning on the street to get to the school, and there's a line to turn onto the street.
Yeah.
And so
it was a drive-through, wasn't it, at that point?
It was literally it was lit. And man, and you would be surprised by how patient people were in those cars, because I didn't realize, because I ended up parking on the street, maybe a couple streets up from the school, because I wasn't trying to do the whole drive-through thing, like you said.
Yeah.
And then, I'm walking towards the school, and I'm like, oh, this is not that bad. I'm actually walking on the wrong side of the school, so I haven't even seen the line yet. And so, you walk past where the regular like school entrance is, and you go past, and then you see like a line wrapped around 2 or 3 blocks, and it's just filling up as you're walking up. It's people walking up with you. It's people behind you, and then there are people on the street that are in a line too. And I didn't even realize, but what they were doing was basically letting those people stay in their cars, and they're bringing the ballots up to those people in their cars as they get closer to the entrance. And so, I was like, oh, that's kind of efficient. But for me, I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to sit in the car and waste gas.
Right.
But I was just like, man, like they started to hand out pizza, waters, Gatorades, like, and I mean, like,
So
at
they
first,
try to be like accommodating in a sense.
I mean, they were trying. So the thing I think that I liked the most, or that I appreciated the most, is the fact that they had like X's on the ground, so that they wanted people to stay their distance and stuff like that. And people, I mean, everybody was pretty lighthearted for the most part. I think since it was a nice day earlier in the day, people kind of like let that, triculate down with them through the rest of the day. But like, it was interesting, man. I was a little nervous because I'm like, I don't know, how many people to expect. And then I don't know if everybody, and I'm going to be completely honest with you, seen a couple Caucasians doing things that I was just like, yo, this is why I did not want to come out here. Like, they,
Wouldn't
like,
be me.
you feel, and I was really sitting there taking back, because I'm like, okay, for the 7, 8, 9 people that you have that are doing the right thing, staying the right amount, distance away from each other, you have that one person out of the 10 that is
Who didn't get the memo.
Who's touching things, who's trying to shake people's hands, and I'm like, no, bro, this isn't, this isn't a normal situation, bro. But
Right.
It was interesting, man. They definitely people, I guess it was people sponsored, since it was a situation that we probably shouldn't have been in anyways.
Right.
People were sponsoring, and they bought, like, they were handing out full boxes of pizza to people, like, unopened. If you because the wait was probably an hour 45 minutes, and that's like me rounding it to like a a good number. It could have been 2 hours. I don't even remember. I just know it was a long wait. But the people that were working there also, while they were handing out things, they kept apologizing, and
this was the poll workers who were apologizing.
Yeah. Some of the poll workers a lot of the poll workers were just kept saying, like, we shouldn't even be having to do this, and I'm like, I wholeheartedly agree. And so it was just crazy, and it was cool because I'm sure that they didn't want to be there either, but the fact that they still came, I appreciated that, and they didn't have like no attitudes or anything like that they could have. So I appreciated that.
Because it seemed like when I was reading that, it seemed like from like the local papers there, it seemed like one of the bigger issues was that a lot of the people who would have been the volunteers, who are most likely senior citizens, they were like, I'm out.
I'm not. Yep.
So I read reports that it was a combination of like some people, like some state elected officials helped out, some like volunteers were still there, but I heard reports that they had the National Guard in certain places in Milwaukee.
Oh, yes.
Was that was
yes.
So can you explain that? Because that's like, when I read that made me shocked.
So I'm not sure how many of the National Guard I've seen, but I know I've seen at least 2, I want to say, but there were also like local police officers. But so the thing was, as I'm walking up, they're kind of playing traffic guards, but then they're also playing, if anything goes haywire, we're right here. And they, I think they were there to keep peace, but I think they were also there to make sure that no one thought to do anything other than what they were. So it was an intimidation thing also, I think. They were like stationed at like the end of blocks and like corners and stuff like that. So like you would walk and you would get to like the end of the block, and then you would see like 2 of them stationed off. And then they had certain streets blocked off where you couldn't even turn onto certain streets with the people there. it wasn't more so like, you know, they were there to scare, but you seen them and they were visible. I think that they wanted to be visible, and they made sure that people noticed them, and people were like, okay,
So
we're
people
not
be
even
mindful of the fact to like just still be cautious or whatnot.
just do what you got to do. And and there was a couple of them that I seen, you know, like engaging with people and stuff like that. I think the overall thing that everyone was you know, kind of dealing with was the fact that we were there in the first place. And
That's
then
like
Yeah, we're about to get into So
okay, yeah.
because I think when like Henry and I have kind of talked about, I feel like we've talked about Wisconsin as a state a couple of times, because I think for a lot of people who don't know, but I'm sure you know well, Wisconsin has a really bad history with voting rights and voter ID laws, especially in the last 10 years. So can you kind of speak to like the history, or just kind of like the general culture of kind of voting? Because when I just did some researching, in 2011, people sued the state over a voter ID law. Students sued the state in 2016 because apparently University of Madison, Wisconsin students weren't allowed to use their student IDs. In 2019, a group of students sued the school over frequent bias that often impacted Milwaukee's Black and Latino communities. So can you kind of just speak to kind of like the general attitude there? Because they also had the issue with the voter purges. So I mean, what's going on in the state? Because it seems like Wisconsin is like the hub for we're not trying to let young people and Black people vote.
So okay, so it's interesting. That's an interesting question, because I'll say over the past 10 years, what's this, 2020 now? I haven't lived here for all 10 of those years, right?
Right.
And so, you know, the first time I ever like voted was for Barack's re-election. So that was the first time I got to vote, and I was still in DC at the time, like living there. And so since I've been back, I've definitely noticed a lot of real questionable things in terms of like, you know, where people live and things like that. Like I was reading up, and I know a couple of people that fit in this category were basically like, if you move here,
it's like impossible to, it's very hard to get registered.
And I think that might be the biggest one that I've seen and I actually know about firsthand, because I've definitely had to re-register, you know, just moving from literally up the street maybe and then back down the street. Like we moved from, you know, we had a summer house that we were going to live in, and then it wasn't done, so we came back in. You know,
so they made you, just to be clear, they made you re-register just because of a change in address.
Yep, they make you re-register completely. And like that lad that's me every time when I hear about it, because it's like you got to think about, and this is always how I look at it, like people for our age, if it's not convenient for us, or it's not,
but also you're moving constantly. If you go to U of M, like if you go to like University of Wisconsin, if you go to school in Green Bay, or if you just have an apartment in Milwaukee, you're moving every lease.
And you wouldn't expect to have to do that. And the thing is, like for a lot of people, like I know a lot of older people, I know people who aren't in the best financial situations. For some people, it's difficult, or it's, you know what, this is too much for me to have to go and re-register when I thought I was just coming up here to vote.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? And, you know, I've seen that a lot of times. And then I know it's also where it's like a lot of places, I think the votes are going to be, I don't know, I got to figure out how I want to say this, but it's what's the term? Gerrymander? How do you say that?
Gerrymander. You got it right on those.
Yeah. Okay. It's a lot of that too, where, you know, the boundaries are manipulated to the advantage of the Republicans, of course. And it's just like
closing this post gonna trickle down and like end up like happening, but yeah, that's another conversation.
Yeah, man, and it's, I don't know, I just I've seen it, and I know like how some of the stuff that they can do, like any polling situations or any voter rights or anything like that they can try to tweak or make it so that it's not going to be, you know, in the and the best outcome for people like us, that's what I've seen happen. I don't know. Voting here is just always is something extra that comes with it every time, and I don't know, like, where that comes from or why it happens, but it's been since I've been back for sure, and I've been old enough to, to make sure I vote all the time. I've always seen it to where it's like, up, well, you can't vote here, or up, you didn't register, up, well, your ID doesn't work, or you can't, and it's just like, it gets a bit tolling for people, I'm sure. And I think that's, what they expect when they do, certain things.
Right. So like that happening, excuse me, with that happening, like you being like a young black voter, of course, does that like turn you off, or does that like motivate you to like continue to like, okay, ensure that I have to do this because clearly it's important?
I think that's a good question, bro. To be completely honest, it's a bit of both. It's honestly a bit of both. I think, like, I made the joke, and I think you've seen on Twitter, like, when I said I sat outside for an hour and 45 minutes, and, like, I got done, and I didn't even get an I voted sticker. Like, I made the joke. I was so upset about that. Like, I was really hurt like a kid about that. But it was just, like, for me, I think I always want to vote if I can. And I think that's literally because, like I said, my first time voting was Obama. So I'll never take that, as something that's just like, whatever, But then when it's situations where it's like, yo, they're making it so that, or Republicans want it so that we don't even want to come out and vote. Like, they're going to do whatever they can to make us feel as if it's not important, or we shouldn't, or we don't have to. That's really what it is. I think that makes me like, yeah, I'm going to do this regardless. And it makes you feel good, I think, to know, like, one big thing I hate is people that, oh, well, why is this happening in our state? Da, 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 da. And then you ask them if they voted, and there's crickets. You know what I mean? Like,
and the two do correlate. The two correlate.
It absolutely does. And so for me, it's just like always, I think it, like, mentally, it can get annoying, and it can be like, is it even worth going to vote if they feel like, if you feel like there's a decision, or an answer that the Republicans want, from everything happening. But for me, it's always like, if I don't vote, I don't think I should be able to talk about what's going on. I don't really have that right. And honestly, why wouldn't you? Like, what else are you going to do? These are the people that are in your community and making a difference there. So I don't know. I don't think it's like even a question for me, but it definitely does become something where I honestly, if my granny didn't call, and if I didn't know, like, yeah, I can go somewhere 5 minutes away from me, I was considering not voting. I'm not even gonna lie to y'all.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of didn't really give you an option, but I think,
if we're not going to work, and being around this many people, then why would we go out?
Why would we go to a polling location?
Exactly.
And I think, like, one of the kind of like the final question for me is that, are you nervous about kind of how they're going to set up the election for November? I think it does help that you all do have a newly elected Democratic governor, but
I do too.
Your state house is still in Republican control, and your Supreme Court is still under, because that's basically how the election ended up being on that Tuesday, where the governor blocked it, and then the Supreme Court was like, you thought you can't do that. We're gonna
make this go through.
Right.
Yeah.
So are you kind of nervous about how November, because Wisconsin is one of the, probably, if not the most important state for the election?
I am, to be completely honest, but it's one of those things where it's kind of like, okay, well, we know that our state is important, and we know that this election is probably the most important election we've ever had. And so what I'm more so nervous about the people here and if they're actually going to come out and still vote. And that is more so of what I'm nervous about, more so than how the officials and everybody else up there is going to do. I just hope, because there's so many people that, if I'll put it like this, they had absentee ballots and people were asking for those. And
not everyone got them though.
and when
not
I say
everyone got
not,
them.
when you say not everyone, a large majority did it.
Right.
So
that part.
I'm hoping, yeah, and it's kind of sick because stuff like that, I'm sure, can deter people from wanting to vote regardless. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now think about it as if come November, they like, okay, we're going to have to do all absentee votes. And people that tried to get that for the primary, it didn't happen. So these people might just be like, forget it altogether.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I think with that attitude, that's more so what I think I'm concerned about. But I do feel like with the people that are in charge, with the Republicans being in charge, I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to pull something similar to what they did this time.
Yeah.
And I am a bit nervous about that too. More so the people, but if they have the power to switch stuff and vote as soon as they want to and get something boom, boom, bam out of it, yeah, I don't know how that's going to turn out. And I think our state is too much of a swing state for it to be like, we don't know what the Supreme Court is going to do or what our governor is actually able to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that's the biggest thing too. It's not about, what he's supposed to do or what, it's what they're going to allow him to do at the end of the day. And I think that puts a little bit of fear into me. I can't lie about that.
Henry, do you have any other? I have this question just hit my head, but
Okay.
Henry, you have anything you want to add real quick?
Not at the brink of that, but just like in general, as a young voter, someone who's like experienced this process and you clearly like are engaged, what would you say to those people who like, oh, I'm not voting because like they didn't pick my person or something like that? Like people who are kind of just like, oh, I don't mess with Biden, whatever, I'm not voting, it don't matter anyway.
Man, so honestly, I don't know like how simple you can put this, but it's bigger than you specifically. It's bigger than just us, like us three on this call right now. It's bigger than just black people. It's literally like the whole fate of our country right now is dependent on this election. And if somebody says that to you and you still need more, you
might not be able to do anything for that.
Yeah, it might not be anything we can do for you. But I will say this honestly. So like how I always looked at it is, I used to hear those people that have those theories. Oh, it don't matter. Our votes don't matter. Da, 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 da. Well, each vote that you think that doesn't matter, it starts somewhere and it goes somewhere.
Right.
And
yeah.
You being that one person that's telling people, oh, it don't matter if we vote, could turn into 10 people, and 10 could turn into 100 and 100. And
That's
Trump did not.
That's how
Trump,
coronavirus spread.
Yeah. honestly, and that's the thing. Like, you don't want to be one of those negative people that makes other people feel like them voting doesn't matter or that they shouldn't care about something that honestly affects all of us and is super important to not just our futures, but possibly your kids, your little cousins, like even your parents. Healthcare is important to, you know what I mean? Like stuff like that. It's like, it's not just about who you like and who you don't like, because at the end of the day, a lot of people I'm sure voted for Hillary that didn't like Hillary last election, but not enough. You know what I mean? So let's not make it a situation where we're in a not enough predicament again. That's all I would say to people like that. It's just like bigger enemy than Biden and Bernie. Like it's a bigger,
Yeah. And real quick, because I know we got a little bit of a time thing here. As I was saying, like I know, and you know this better than us, like Wisconsin is like probably the most important state of that. Milwaukee is probably the most important city, like that will probably, yeah, like that'll probably, how Milwaukee goes has a good chance to possibly sway who wins the election.
The west of the state, yeah.
So how do you feel like the city of Milwaukee, more specifically the Black and brown community, specifically in Milwaukee, has been engaged? Do you think that the candidates so far, the primary process was getting to them, or do you think that there's still a lot of work to do to engage kind of the people who Biden will need to, frankly, to win?
Yeah. So what I will say is, I think it's been an okay job so far. What I will say is, if I'm not mistaken, the last election, I don't think Hillary came.
No, she didn't go the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And she lost by 22,000 votes.
And listen, and that's what I didn't remember if I was about to say 21, but okay, I knew it was something like that. But it was so close to me that it was like, you can't be overconfident in a state just because you might have won,
or just because you think it's in the bag,
or because you think that for you it's not going to be. Oh, I got it. I'm not. I think they have to come. And I think that they have to make it a big thing, because for real, like, I was surprised. So, man, y'all have to see how upset a lot of us were when we seen that Wisconsin was one of the states that Trump won, and we were just like,
what?
Like, what is going on? And the thing was, I thought about it right away, and I said Hillary was overconfident, and she didn't come. When it mattered, she didn't come. So I do believe that that they're gonna have to engage more than they are now. I do feel like the people here are definitely on board with the Democrats, but it's not one of those things where it's just gonna be, I'm walking right in and I'm gonna get these votes and we walking right out.
Earn it.
I still think it's gonna be a dogfight, and I still think the people here in Wisconsin want to hear from these people. Like, we want to know what just happened in this primary and why we were just out in the, you know what I mean? Like, we need answers for a lot of things, and I do believe that it's a key state, so that you can't just go over it and gloss over it and think what happened 4 years ago can't and won't happen again if you don't put the proper time and the proper visits that you have to, hear. I think it's super essential. Yeah.
Yeah, once again, Henry, Zoom is telling us that we got 10 minutes. So I will ask, Davonta, if you want to drop your social media, or if you have anything on the side that you want to highlight, now's the chance, so we can all follow you. And how can we get you up?
My Twitter is, man, listen, so I had the same Twitter since like 2010, I want to say. It's like at I Do It. This was like when Big Sean first came out and he was fired. And it was like, I Do It. Yeah, boy. I Do It with 3 T's at the end. My Instagram is named Johnny Bling. The quarantine got me being creative. I dropped a little track last week. Probably gonna drop another one coming up. But besides that, that's it, man. I just want to thank y'all for having me on here again. I appreciate this.
We appreciate you for coming on. So
yes, sir.
You can follow us.
We appreciate you for voting too. Like that.
Oh yes,
huge.
Yes. Clap.
Yes. Couldn't have missed it, man. Yeah.
So you can be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at WRGO Pod. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube. This video will be up in its entirety, so you can see all of us. Be sure to subscribe on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. One note, if we do have a Democratic convention in Milwaukee, I will be there. So if I am, I'll hit you up with my mask on, but we'll keep 10 feet away. But Davonta, we really appreciate you for coming on the pod, and we will be sure to look out for all the tracks that you will drop. Appreciate you, man.
Yes. Y'all have a good one.